Welcome to the Whiskey Explorer. Thanks so much for tuning in for another episode, guys. And if this is your first time on the channel, if you could please do us a quick favor, hit that subscribe button, hit the like button down below, and leave us a comment. Let us know if you've tried this bourbon and what your thoughts are, and we'll continue the conversation at the Whiskey Explorer. And if you guys would also like to follow me on Instagram, you can find me there at Whiskey Explorer 1. And tonight, guys, we've got a very cool bottle, a very exciting one for you. We have got the Smooth Ambler Old Scout 7-year-old bourbon. All right, guys, so Smooth Ambler and the Old Scout label. So Smooth Ambler has a few different release labels. So they've got like the Contradiction, they've got their Old Scout brand, and they've got basically these different labels, and they are basically sourcing their whiskey from MGP, or what is known now as the Ross and Squibb Distillery. So I still like to call it MGP, just a lot easier for me, and I don't really like the new name. So anyways, they're actually sort of one of the original companies that was sourcing barrels and bourbon from MGP. So essentially what they do is they bring that back to their warehouse. They may do some blending or some additional aging there, and then they bottle it under the Smooth Ambler Old Scout label. And back in the day, you used to be able to find really nice aged MGP store picks of the Old Scout, so maybe 9, 10, 11 years old. Unfortunately, a lot of those have dried up, and of course MGP has their own brands and their own labels now, as well as they've got the Luxco under their umbrella as well. So they're sort of using their higher age stated whiskeys for their own stuff, and of course there's also lots of other companies that are sourcing from MGP as well. So those higher age statement MGPs are getting harder and harder to find. This one, actually, we're lucky to get this here. This is the 7-year-old, and this is bottled here at 99 proof or 49.5% ABV. So this is nice that it's actually a 7-year-old one. We don't get the store picks here in BC, but I do have one from Alberta, and it's a 5-year-old pick, and that's generally what we're going to see out here in Canada, is those kind of 5-year-old MGP-sourced barrels. This one is nice that it's at that 7 years. So yeah, lucky to get that. So this bottle here actually is on loan from our good friend of the channel, Chris. Chris, thanks so much for loaning me this bottle of Old Scout to check out and review on the channel. Really appreciate that. Thanks so much. So let's get into the review here, guys. Let's have a look at the color in the glass here. So the color here is sort of a medium copper, so not too dark, not too light, kind of a middle of the road, kind of medium copper tone to it. So let's go in for a nose on this. On the nose, cheers. Wow. Wow, this has like a really candied nose to it. So tons of vanilla, tons of like ripe, deep dark cherry notes. Butterscotch and caramel playing in there, brown sugar. This just has actually like a fantastic nose to it. Lots of that red fruit, almost like a nibs licorice. So yeah, very sweet, almost nosing like a dessert whiskey. So lots of sweet flavors, deep dark cherry notes, vanilla is in there. It's really a super inviting nose, actually, guys. So without further ado, let's go in for a taste on this one, guys. On the palate, cheers. Wow, so the first thing I notice is, even though it's only 99 proof, it is actually mouth coating. So you do get a nice kind of velvety feel on the palate of this bourbon. Coats the palate very well. Then you get, right away, you get a burst of that sweet cherry note that I was mentioning. There's also like an effervescence to this bourbon as well. So it kind of sparkles when you first sip it on the tongue, which I really enjoy that. It's a really cool experience. So nice, strong, deep dark cherry note up front, vanilla. Mid palate, the baking spices come into play. So got some cinnamon, some fresh cracked black pepper in there. And then some classic baking spices, so cinnamon, nutmeg, maybe a little bit of clove. And then also there's a little bit of a woodiness in the mid palate here as well. But man, that is a really super solid bourbon. Guys, that is so good for like a 7-year-old sourced MGP. That is excellent stuff. I don't know who's exactly picking this one here. The only information I have on the side here is that it was imported by Sovereign Wine and Spirits in Vancouver, which when I researched them, I found out was a fairly large sort of distribution company. So not sure exactly who's picking that, but that's really, really nice bourbon. So really, really enjoy that. Let's go in for a second sip here, guys. Cheers. Again, leading with that deep, dark cherry note, almost a medicinal cherry note. Then right behind that cherry is that nice sweet vanilla cream. Then you got the caramel and the butterscotch mixing in there. Then there's like a rush of spices. So there's some cinnamon, nutmeg, baking spices. Then there's a nice sweet oak kind of wood note in the center there. As well as there's like this, it's hard to describe or put my finger on this one, but there's like a really nice, enjoyable kind of dusty funk to this one as well. So it's almost like that leather-bound book. It's kind of hearkening that type of feel. So really, really nice bourbon, super well-rounded and super enjoyable, approachable at that 99 proof. And guys, I would say on this one, if you see a 7-year-old Old Scout sitting on the shelf, grab it, because this is really, really good bourbon. I really enjoy this one. So thanks again so much to Chris for letting me try this one out. I really appreciate it and hope everyone is doing well. Thanks so much for joining me for another review. Until next time, may your sails be full and your drowns be fuller. Cheers.